Joey, welcome to Yachting USA. It's so nice to see you here. Finally, we catch up.
It's lovely to see you, Rick. Thank you for having me.
That's my pleasure. What a busy week.
It's been an amazing week.
Hasn't it, though? Oh, my goodness.
It's probably been one of my best shows, I think, if not.
I would say so. I want to start out by acknowledging the Mets Trade organizers, Niles Clarenbach, and the entire group that has made this week so possible. The Superyacht Forum amazing, the Mets Trade amazing with the full build out of the Rye Center, the studio that they've provided us this year to create all this content. So let's talk about the Superyacht Alliance. This is your baby.
You're jumping straight into the Alliance, Rick.
Well, there's going to be so many rabbit holes we're going to run down, Joey.
No.
But I thought it'd be important that the people that are starting to listen to us right now understand you. I've been in this business almost 35 years, almost as long as I have.
Nearly. I was creeping up to the 14 mark, but yeah.
Well, you must have started as a child.
Now you're really flattering me. Yeah, no, it's been a few years, yes. A few decades that I'm ticking by now, but I think the Superyacht Alliance is probably, to me, the ultimate of where this industry can get to. Good.
It's a collaborative organization, right?
It's been a long time coming. It's been something that some of the associations have been talking about for many years. We've had a fair amount of discussions about how this could possibly be. And I think one of the biggest hurdles was having the right people in the right place at the right time with the right mindset. And they always say things align, right?
And in this industry, if it's even an industry, I sometimes say it's a conglomeration of professions.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting everybody on the same page.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, ma'am.
Yeah, it's not easy. But we've done it. And I think the instigators behind it were certainly Seabass. Theo Humling was a big influence to this. In fact, him and I sat down many years ago. This was before the Monaco Yacht Club moved to the other side.
Oh, wow, that
so
goes
this is
back
going
ways.
back,
yeah.
Trying to talk about how we could get the associations to align better and to match up with some of the issues that we all have. And eventually we managed to do this. And we formed the Alliance actually 2 years ago, but it takes a while to get a structure in place and decide where we want to go. One of the first jobs that we did was to really discuss what our pinch points were within each industry's or each representation within the Alliance, just to lay the landscape out so we know who's involved.
Right.
So Seabass, MEBA and IAMI. So I work with IAMI, which is the International Association of Maritime Institutions, so the education side.
Education, right.
So 3 associations are the founding members of the Alliance. Right. We set that up 2 years ago. As I say, we managed to, and we didn't have to twist arms. We got ICOMIA involved, we got IYBA involved, we got AMEX involved, we got PYA involved. So we've got a pretty much, what I would say, a 360 vision of the industry within those associations.
I would say so.
The representation, if you look at the number of members we all represent and the employment and the workers
through the industry.
Right through the industry, this is a pretty large crowd we're currently representing here within the Alliance board. So this was the first step.
Right. We're all rowing in the same direction?
All rowing in the same direction. So the objective is really very simple. We want to professionalise the industry. We want to raise the standards. It's a very simple message.
Yeah.
How we do it. Now this is where the fun and games begin.
Rubber meets the road.
Yep. And anyway, the board decided that I was either clearly the loudest, the bossiest, but they've made me the president of the Alliance. But I believe that's because I am someone that does things. I get on with stuff.
Right.
And what we've created now is we've created 5 key think tanks. And those think tanks are basically going to be working towards various different focus points and objectives. So we adopted Raising the Bar, which is run by Karen Passman, and there's a large number of people involved with the Raising the Bar that has been already around for a few years now.
And when you say Raising the Bar, we're talking about bringing standards up across the board in the industry?
Well, this think tank in particular works around inspiring crew, retaining crew, looking at HR and recruitment practices. So it's very much around the crew, bringing the right people into the industry, keeping the right people in the industry, inspiring them to stay, and also obviously all the practices that go around that. So within Raising the Bar, we have Raising the Recruitment Bar, and that's all about recruitment practices in HR. Right. So that's a very nice, neat package of standards and guidelines that we're trying to put together. Right. And that's something that the work is ongoing there. And I can't go into all the details of everything because we literally will be here for a day, but I'm giving you the outline.
That's perfect. Which means we'll have plenty of opportunity for future conversations.
I hope so. That would be good.
Absolutely.
And there'll be progress reports. How about that?
Yes, there will be. I love that.
We then have another think tank, which is called Changing Tack on Crew Welfare.
Heard about that for the first time earlier this week.
Yeah, well, we had a few seminars about this week. And so Changing Tack, again, they were formed prior to or around the same time as the Alliance was being set up. Okay. So we adopted them. So they're now under the Alliance umbrella. And they are made up of ISWAN, UKSA, Nautilus, Seafarers Charity is the committee, and they're bringing in a whole load of members now to work with trying to raise the awareness of well-being and mental health in the industry, the resources available, the helplines available. So this is one of our key think tanks, and that's headed up by Laura Beard, who is employed by ISWAN.
Yes, she is, and she was on my show earlier this week.
Yeah.
Will be part of this conversation people will be listening to.
Fantastic, and I'm a very inspirational person, and I think, I'm very pleased that we've got her involved with this. I think it's going to be a game changer for us to get more of the industry aware and involved in trying to change some of the landscapes that we see around well-being for crew and the mental health issues as well that are triggered from the industry sometimes.
Yeah.
Another one of the think tanks we have is called Onboard Safety Operations, and that one is headed up by Paul Shepherd. He's part of CHIRP.
Yep.
And we have a whole committee, and the committee's made up of yacht crews in various different positions in various different size vessels. We have a whole load of individuals, again, within the industry and companies who want to get involved in this, ISS being one of them, which is very good because we have a lot of influence through some of the organisations that exist and are foundations of our industry, if you like. So this is a very healthy thing for us to have that input. And that think tank is very much based around the onboard safety operations. It says it in the title, but how we can tackle this, how we can standardize some of these practices, the human errors maybe of incidents and accidents, or human factors. This is very important.
Well, those who know me know that I spent my first 35 years in this industry building some of the most dangerous on-deck equipment. And one of my most vocal criticisms about our industry for so many decades was there was no standards, truly. There was no training. There was no protocols. And we needed to see that change. So it's thrilling to know that we are now becoming an industry with enough professionalism to bring these levels of instruction and support and training into the conversation, into the fleet.
Absolutely. And the objective of this work group, of this think tank, is very much that it's to put in standards and guidelines. But it's also very much linked to a larger project that the Alliance has, which is trying to harmonise some of the codes and the practices we have at the higher levels. And you were in my session on Monday.
Yeah, I was.
Very nervous about that session because I was standing there. In fact, I opened it, I think, with "I'm going to be Marmite by the end of it. You're going to love or hate me." But it went very well. And we had a resounding result of 86% of the audience, which included flag and class and many other senior people in the industry through the builds and other sectors. But 80% said, yes, we need to have a harmonised code for the operational side and for the workforce.
I believe I grabbed the microphone for a moment and asked the question, what is the value of human life on board?
You did.
So
you got a round of applause for that, Rick.
I noticed that.
I was one of the ones going, yeah.
I'd been wanting to ask that question for a long time. That was relevant to the whole conversation of below and above 500 gross tons. And I've, again, as a manufacturer of deck equipment, that profoundly changes in specification and compliance once you exceed 500 gross tons. I've always asked the question, well, why? When the equipment you can put on a smaller boat has a lower standard, and you're expecting to do the same thing. Yeah, it's just common sense. You'd think it's common sense, and that's where harmonization, I think, is so important.
It is vital. No, and it's actually a nonsense we don't have it, right? I mean, we have private commercial vessels. We are employing crew regardless of their activity, regardless of the size of the vessel, and there needs to be an absolute standard across there with Cs, contracts, welfare, support, resources, and the whole structure of the way that we are running the seafarers in our industry, and it's a nonsense. It's not been in place before.
And Joey, I would go out on a limb and say that green crew, young people coming in that want to join the industry, they're looking for their first job, any job, whatever comes their way. They don't know necessarily the difference between what's going to happen on a private versus a commercial. What happens if they're on a boat that's below 500 gross tons versus they're on a boat above 500 gross tons. They don't know what they don't know. So this is where I think we as a community can step in and help them understand, okay, you're asking for employment on this type of vessel. This is what this means.
And this is it. We're sending vulnerable people into a vulnerable or high-risk situation, potentially. And this is not good enough.
Anytime you go to sea, it's high risk. That's the part that I think a lot of people don't understand. They see these beautiful boats. They're gorgeous. They're glamorous. They're amazing. They all can sink. They all can catch on fire. They all can. There's so many opportunities for problems but it's not really considered much because we don't hear much about the problems. We only hear about the joy and the fun. And I
think also, we hear about the problems, we hear about the joy and the fun, but actually we also need to start looking at the solutions. And I think this is where we're very much focused with the Alliance, is looking at the solutions. Good. And many solutions are actually already there. We're not using them, or we're not recognizing them, or we're not aware of them. So I think by joining some of the dots up here, we're able to start suggesting that, although there are bad practices going on, let's say, well, why and how can we support this, and how can we then influence maybe some changes there? For example, I've talked about this already, Rick, new crew coming in, the next generation of crew coming in, what are they going to be expecting when they start a role on board? What environment are we sending them into? And I think if we can instill a practice in the industry of, as they do in the aviation sector, you do your safety training, but you also do your induction, and it needs to be a standardized induction so that crew understand when they come in exactly what to expect, living conditions, working conditions, the types of vessels, what their rights are, what their contracts should look like.
Right.
And if we can have this as a standard, as other industries do when you're coming into these sorts of environments, that would help.
It would.
And even from the top down, a leadership, if we had standard training throughout the industry where the leadership training is ongoing, again, it's available. We have training available for crew for this level. That, again, will help to harmonise what's happening on board.
So there's a couple pieces of this. One is, I heard, and I've been aware, the Cayman Islands Shipping Registry, which is one of the better, in my opinion, flags, has mandated now that if you're a Cayman boat, your crew need to be under a contract. So I asked the question, is this a standardized SCA, Seamen's Employment Agreement contract? No. It just is a contract, which is like, hey, you're getting there, but why did we stop short? Because there are standardized SCA agreements. A lot of yacht management companies use them. I know when I was running JMS Yachting USA, our yacht management company used a standardized SCA agreement, and that's for the benefit of the crew.
Of course. But actually it's a benefit for everybody. This is actually, it's a two-way street. And I think, and I'm actually really pleased because Cayman have actually stepped up and made a few changes within the last year or so that have actually gone towards something which is where we're trying to head to, right?
Right.
So, we've got to give it to them. And I think with the main flags of our industry being Cayman, Marshall, Malta, UK to a point, I think, we've got to be aligning the flags and saying we need to talk about the welfare of the crew on board. And that includes the seas. And it needs to be a standard across the board.
When I have the opportunity to mentor young people coming into the industry, into crew, and I've been blessed to have several of these opportunities, one of the first things I tell them is don't you dare take a position without a contract. Just don't do it.
That's crazy.
Because when you're doing that, there's a reason you're not given a contract. And it's typically because they want to take advantage of your naivety and run their own program without you having any recourse. So always, for those listening, don't take a position without a contract.
No, 100%. Always. And I think also ask as many questions as you can about about a job you're going into. What is the boat? Who are the people? You've got to get prepared. And again, I think having some kind of formal induction training before you even start that process of interviewing, you could learn so much about what kind of questions you need to ask, what you need to look out for. And we do that through for example, with the guest program, which is what that's another hat I wear. It's not just the Alliance hat. I'm wearing my training hat as well, the education, because I'm very passionate about education. Professional development to me is the way that we learn and we grow in an industry.
That's true.
And again, that's something the Alliance is very linked to what we're trying to achieve with education is the core of where the Alliance sits in one way, but we can come to that in a minute. But with the education that the International Association of Maritime Institutions has provided through the guest program, And if you don't know what the guest program, it's Guidelines for Excellence in Super Yacht Training. And it's basically the training that is not under the mandatory requirement, but is very much needed for the operations of our industry.
So can I ask a question? Yeah. Can this guest training be added into or adjunct to the STCW and other training that happens when crew come in? So the training academies that exist that I'm aware of could incorporate this or should incorporate this into their curriculum.
100%, and many of them do already.
Good.
So we have, 38 schools worldwide that deliver the training. The training is everything from interior crew pathways, the introduction course, Introduction to Yachting and Yachting Life is the name of the course, the induction course I call it, leadership training, HR training, yacht financial management training, we have purser training, so yacht owner representative training. So there's a lot of programs within guest.
I should audit a couple of these courses.
You need to come and do that. I would love you to come and do these courses.
Could I?
Yeah,
oh,
I would love
to.
you to. But the introduction one to me is one of the key areas because that we're preparing crew to do it. And certainly when you speak to some of the training providers, maybe the more overseas providers like the ones that maybe in South Africa or in New Zealand or Australia, often young people will come and do that course and then decide, actually, this is not the industry for me, because they get a reality check that it's got nothing to do with the expectations they thought the industry was going to be about.
Right.
You know, the level of responsibility or as coming into an industry as your first job ever to work on a yacht, and suddenly you are responsible not just for your own life, but other part of a team.
Right.
You have to understand that. You have to understand work ethics and time keeping and personal etiquette and,
I have conversations with people who there's so much misconception about crew and what they're faced with and why they have these challenges. And I use this analogy, if you will. I said, imagine that you were just offered a job and the money sounds really good.
Yeah.
And you're told, okay, get on the train and show up here 8 o'clock tomorrow. And you'll clock off the job 45 days from now. And meanwhile, for the next 45 days, you're going to work 16, 18 hours a day. You're going to work with a lot of pressure on you. And in fact, if it looks like the pressure is coming off, we'll just figure out how to add a little bit more on. You're going to work with people you've never met before, and you're all going to live together in really small spaces. And at any given time, you're going to be asked to muster on deck or do something else. And after 45 days, you're off the clock. Most people would say, like that, no, that's crazy.
That's not going to work.
But that's what crew do. That's the reality of so much of this. Is it's a 24/7 program. There's no second shift.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is supposed to be the downtime in between that, but the downtime is still on board. It's still within your own environment, and there's no escaping that.
So leaving.
Regardless of the activity you're doing, or you're in that environment, as you say, you're stuck there. And if the yacht is coming and going to different places, there's not often opportunity necessarily to get off or have some time away from that environment.
That's right.
Personal space is not a thing. So, So I think, we need to really prepare the younger generations coming through to have a good understanding of what they're coming into, because it helps everybody. It helps the onboarding process. It helps the HODs who are working with the new generation coming in. And again, I think we're seeing changes in the individuals of that age group, and that culture is often quite different too. They're slightly more vulnerable, maybe less resilient than some of us older generations that came from different environments. And it's no fault of anybody. It's just the way life is. It's like, there are other influences around that have changed that attitude and the way that people are. We've got to go with that. We've got to embrace it and look after them and take care of that and understand it and have the empathy to go with it. And if we don't, we're only actually hurting our own environments on board. We have to make sure we're nurturing that and ensuring that there's a safe place for people to be. And the best way to do that is through induction, through training, through ensuring that they're ready to join the party. Are they going to come on board and be the team member, or maybe go and get a job somewhere else and come back next year when you've got a little bit more experience in that in an environment of team and a work ethic environment. There's no right or wrong answer. It's always very individual to the individual crew member.
Right.
But to get a job in the industry as a new crew coming in, you got to understand what you're coming into. Because if you don't, you're going to be packing your bags and walking off very soon. And unfortunately being quite disillusioned with something that if you'd come in the right way, you could have been bringing something to the table, having the energy, understanding it, being part of the team. I think that empowers the individual as well to enjoy and embrace their new positions.
Well, myself, having been 40 years in this industry and constantly around crew, and then so many crew that have rotated onto the beach and have started their own businesses and become art.
Yeah.
This is a people industry. It's a passion industry. The people that are in it love it and are passionate about it. And it's interesting. I tell this story, and I'll continue to tell the story because I think it's relevant. I flew to Mexico in August, and I met with a woman by the name of Elle Fisher. And she's written a couple books. One's called Screw the Crew, and it's hilarious. It's great. It's a
I have
love
not
letter.
read it. I need to read it.
I'll send it to you. I got a copy signed from her.
that.
I'll send it to you. It's a love letter to the industry. She talks about all the different positions on the yacht and the personalities, traits associated with, and fun. 10 years in, she was almost always head of department. She started when she was almost 30 years old. And the recruiting agency said, Elle, you'll never get a job. You're too old, and you've got visible tattoos. And 2 weeks later, she was on a 60-meter yacht called Party Girl. She started as a second stew, quickly got moved to the first stew position. She became a purser. She's been involved in a lot. The woman has a love for the industry, and she tells fun stories about her experiences, but she also tells stories about the bad experiences. And we went and did some deep dives on that. But the takeaway, though, is there's this passion, there's this love, and she stood in for 10 years and still talks about that experience openly, and I think that's healthy.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think, transparency is really important. And I think telling those stories and being open about them is actually really educational for everybody. I think the more we put on the table and talk about, the more we can find ways to make it better. But also we can actually celebrate the wins, because there's some really fantastic things happening in the industry. There's amazing people that work in it. So we can't forget that. We need to celebrate that when we can.
If it was all the downside, we wouldn't have
We
it.
wouldn't, yeah.
No, right.
Yeah.
And, after spending this past year, really, because of the circumstances you and I are aware of, refocusing my efforts and thoughts more esoterically and more human, with a more human connection. More of these conversations are drifting into the podcast. And that was an interesting conversation yesterday with a good friend and a naval architect, yacht designer, Cordy Rover. He's such a creative man, and he's done some incredible yacht designs. And he came up and asked how I was doing. We got into a nice conversation, opened the door for me to ask him a question. I said, when you are now designing new vessels, how much energy and thought goes into enhancing the crew experience on the yacht?
Okay.
I said, consider this, because we're looking at this concept he did, a beautiful catamaran motor yacht with a foiling sail, and the hybrid technology is just, the styling is just, wow, great. I said, consider the fact that technology now is allowing the technical spaces to get smaller on these boats. We're getting more efficient and new propulsion techniques. And so as the engine spaces and technical spaces get smaller, are we going to give the space back to the owner? Or are we going to give the space to the crew?
Yeah.
And I would challenge, and he bought into this completely. He's like, you're absolutely right. And I would challenge any other designer, whether you're pedigreed and been in the business for 40 years or whether you're just starting out, to think about it that way. Because if you enhance the crew's environment and you create an ambiance that when they come off shift and off deck, they may not always get their private stateroom. That's not possible on some of the smaller boats. But they come into a space that is harmonious, that is comfortable, that gives them a little bit of privacy where they need it, gives them the opportunity to just let the levels come down a little bit. And when the question's asked, well, why? Yeah, they're just crew, they're paid. It's like, no, you understand that really it comes down to the owner's experience. And when you talk to owners, some of their biggest criticisms are the drama that they take away with the crew. So if you bring the crew up, you will then bring the owner's experience up. And when you do that, the owner says, wow, this was a good decision to have this boat. I want to be on my boat. I love the service. I love the experience that I'm enjoying when I'm at sea, when I'm on deck. Maybe I'll build another one. Maybe I'll keep this one. Maybe I'll bring a friend of mine in because he or she should have this experience as well. It enhances everything. So anybody that's in business in our industry that doesn't recognize the welfare of the crew is critical to your business. I don't care what you do in this industry. You're missing the big picture.
Absolutely. And I think also when we're talking specifically about crew, and I agree with you, that goes across every industry within the, whether you're land-based or otherwise, the people working for you, the human factor is the most important. But I think with the crew in our industry particularly, they are actually the front line to the whole industry.
They are.
Literally the front line. And I think the human factor of those crew members that work at sea, I also believe very much they are probably the biggest safety and service investment asset, if you like, that this industry has.
Yes.
And if we're not investing in that asset, because they are the ones driving forward the owner's experience, the maintenance and welfare of the asset of the owners, the lives of the owners and their families, including obviously the lives of the crew themselves.
That's right.
This is the front line, the pointy end of our sector.
It is.
And if we're not looking after this and we're not investing in it and we're not caring for it, we're actually destroying the rest of what we're trying to achieve here anyway.
Right.
And, this is something I feel very strongly about.
Well, and, the concept of this podcast was to talk about the business of the yachting industry, and I'm comfortable with that. And if you want to almost be selfish about it, the numbers that I'm aware of at this point in time is there's 600 large yachts over 35 meters in construction right now worldwide. So, there's another 200 in contract, soon to go into production. Essentially, as these boats are being delivered and coming off production, they're being replaced by more and more going in. The fleet's only getting bigger, the demand is only increasing, and the human factor is challenged. We don't have enough crew. We don't have enough resources to man all these vessels. We're going to hit a peak where it's going to be almost a crisis about how do we keep these high net worth individuals that we all depend upon for our economic infrastructure happy, healthy, and in the game. So we have to attract and retain crew. We have to find ways to make this an amazing industry that you want to be part of, and once they come in, find a way to keep them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's been statistics over the last few years about, we're looking 5-10 years ahead of, if we're staying on this same level of delivery,
the trajectory
that we're going to be extremely short of crew, because it's not just the new crew we need to facilitate the new vessels being launched and built. And even during the build stage, we need people. The increased number of vessels that are on rotation, quite rightly so, for the well-being of industries.
That's another trend that's happening,
but
which is
also
good.
People leaving. So the actual number of crew we need on an annual basis to keep up with this is more than just the build side. It's a massive amount, but it's got to be the right people. And I think this is where we need to keep at it with trying to attract the right people, prepare people when they're coming in, but more so retain people. We've got to stop the people leaving because of the wrong reasons. We need to facilitate that. And I think that's another thing coming back to, there's two things actually I wanted to pick up from what you said. And I think, remind me about the qualifications. I want to talk about the framework. But, to come back to the size of vessels and the crew space, I think that's something that again, we talked about through the Alliance, is very much about we need to stop benchmarking everything we do on the minimum. And the minimum manning, in the manning document, is there for a reason. That's to get a vessel from A to B. We all know that. That's what a manning document is for. It's what that vessel needs in order to be safe manning.
Safe at sea, right.
But we need to be actually working everything we do around this industry, from the number of crew that we employ to the way that the yachts are built and the crew space is available, around the operational side of the industry. And we need to benchmark everything we do on operational. And, the hours of rest is a big thing that came up the other day in the conversation.
Everybody hears that and then they smile, right? It's like, it's a concept. It's a great concept.
It's a great idea. But, and we lit a few fires during that conversation. But we have to face this. We have to address it. We're sending crew out that are fatigued. This needs to change, and we need to find solutions for it. But I think, this is how we need to start thinking as an industry going forward, is how can we collectively create the space on board so that there is enough space for us to be able to employ the operational crew we need to make that vessel safe for the operation it's been bought for, which is looking after guests and owners.
Right, because it's highly unlikely we'll ever get to the point where the vessels will be large enough that you could actually carry a second shift. There is no second shift.
No. But there is other ways that we can work around this.
That's right.
And there must be ways that we can find solutions. And this is what we're trying to do. Whether we find the right solutions or we come up with something different, but it's a starting point, right? We're actually, we put the elephant out in the room now.
Yeah.
They're all in the room being talked around.
40 years ago when I started in this industry, I would go into cruise spaces and they were abhorrent. Yeah, it's just like, really? You're going to, And so incrementally over the last several decades, I've noticed that there's been more and more attention given to, and more on the higher end, more bespoke, I hate using that word, but I did, vessels. Yeah. You're seeing better crew infrastructure. Yeah. But again, I'm challenging the industry because it starts at the 25 to 35 meter boat and goes from there. We need to make sure that, the incoming crew stay. And that means the small boats have to address and pay attention to these spaces and the environment that we put their crew into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is again, retention, but it's also about professionalizing the industry and what the industry looks like from the outside in. And I think, so one of the things that the Alliance has managed to do as well is it's got some Erasmus funding to create a Superyacht Qualifications Framework. So we have a number of partners involved in this, and the Alliance is a driving force. Okay. But the objective is in the next 3 years that we landscape a whole framework of industry roles and professions, and we attribute skill sets and attributes to that, along with qualifications that might be required. And this
Can you
is
describe some of these roles? I mean, what's this look like?
We are literally on the starting block right now.
Okay. So don't mean to put you on the spot, but
interview me this time next year, Rick, and I'll give you a little bit of a lowdown of where we've got to. But the objective is that we're going to look at every role within the whole industry. Let's look at the shipyard roles as an example. There's a large number of roles in the shipyard.
Oh, yeah.
Your surveyors, I don't even know half the names of the roles because it's not my area of expertise.
That's okay. I can fill in the blanks.
You can fill in the blanks for me. But, so you look at all the different positions in the shipyard, how would you get to, as an outside person looking in, saying, I want a career in this industry, to be able to be that particular person, to have that role in the industry? Right. What's my route in? So we're looking at how we can progress people into the industry from the outside through a professional career and a professional path with qualification routes. So we're looking at qualifications and education that exists already, and we see how that fits for purpose for various different elements within the roles we're talking about. Right. And if it's not there, we can look at developing training that would fit for that. So this is our role here. Okay. It's huge. And this is not just for the onboarders. So the onboard is already there to a certain extent with the mandatory requirements, but we're also adding into that the other requirements, as we talked about, leadership, HR, mental health and well-being, training, a very important part to the industry, to the success of the industry. So it's everything that we can possibly look at. We need to produce this framework. We have 3 years to do it in. So wish us luck. And if anyone wants to get involved, please let me know, because we need some help here. Good. But yeah, this is a big job for us as an industry to have this framework. But what it will do is two things. Primarily two things, hopefully a lot more. It'll show the outside world that this industry is a profession. It'll look like a professional industry to come into. And we use this word industry because we haven't quite found the right word yet, have we, Rick? No. But, this then is a professional environment for people to come and work in and actually identify roles and jobs within it, and know that there's actually pathways to get to that from land-based roles into it as well. But the other thing that it's doing is it's producing a ship-to-shore route. Yes. So those we're looking to transition, it means we can start giving, or they can start looking at options that they might like to do further down the line when they want to leave the industry from the onboard side, and start working slowly towards a profession on the outside with something that's a little less scary than what am I going to do when I leave this boat? And right. Well, you think about, let's say you've been crewing vessels for 10 years. You have a decade at sea. Yeah. You can imagine it's a long time. You can imagine the accumulated experience you have, what I would call the legacy knowledge you've achieved in that period of time. That is hugely valuable to land-based businesses that want to participate in our profession, industry, to be able to bring forward products or services that function, work, and integrate well with the boats that are on the fleet. So, when you talk to people about what a long-term career in yachting can look like, it can start as a greenie, second mate or second stew position, and it can work all the way through HOD, head of department,
to come into the beach and either working for a company that was supporting your vessels at some one point in time, or hanging your own shingle and trying to go out on a limb, take a risk, and start your own business. You know what the needs are, right?
Yeah.
You see you see the gaps, and you go, "Oh, wow, I know how to fill that gap."
Yeah. But now coming into that gap, you can now get some additional training or CPD if you need it to be able to support that better for you.
That's
so,
right.
you know, we don't end up losing this amazing experience that is disappearing, you know, on a weekly basis.
We can't afford to. Right.
We cannot afford to.
No.
So I think hopefully this will be in some way helping the industry with regards to retaining the expertise of what we need. It will hopefully attract more people from the outside world into the industry, which obviously will include us being able to bring more crew into the areas that we know is, well, I don't want to make it sound scary, but into what we can see in the future as being a real crisis need for more crew coming through, but the right crew coming through.
Yeah, I mean, in some regards, if you allow yourself to go down that rabbit hole, it gets a little scary because you understand the fundamentals. But on the other side of the coin, I think, you know, opportunity creates opportunity. So, yeah, so let's look at this with the glass half full and say, aren't we fortunate that we have such a vibrant business that we need these people?
Yeah.
And I would go out on a limb, Joey, I don't think any of these positions are at risk by AI takeover.
No, I'm not seeing that either. I think we're okay. I think we're going to be fine for a little while longer anyway.
I don't think Elon Musk's going to create a robot that's going to come on board and take over a second stew position or, you know, a chief purser position. I think that's pretty safe. And yeah.
No, I think we're okay on this one. I think our industry is quite safe from the AI world for the moment.
Yeah, no, that's good because that's a conversation itself.
Oh, yeah. No, and I think, you know, again, it's the technical side of the industry is growing as well. So, I mean, to move on to that, we've literally just finished writing an AVIT course, for example. I mean, I know that's not quite the same as the AI conversations we're having, but it's a sign of the times where there's so much tech now on board. We really need to keep up to make sure that crew are trained in the right areas. And of course, this isn't in the mandatory certification routes, but it's certainly now available for crew. And that includes actually the sort of introduction crew, interior crew. You know, they're the ones that, again, are on the front line of working with the with owners and guests and having to understand how the yacht is operating, and the technology it grows.
It does.
It goes quick.
It's tough to keep up with sometimes.
You only have to walk through one of the halls here at Metz to see how much is going on. Yeah,
that's incredible what's showed up this year. Amazing. Yeah. Here's could be hopefully it's not too tough a question, but with everybody as busy as they are, and we have our businesses and we've got our focus and priorities and all that, and you're listening to this conversation, you go, Superyacht Alliance, it sounds like an organization, a program that needs our support, needs to progress. How do people get involved? How can the people listening to this conversation step in and go, let me help out here, I've got an idea, or I've got a little bandwidth or whatever? Are there ways that businesses and individuals can say, let me help?
Yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant question. And other than giving out your email address, Rick.
No, that's all right.
You don't mean to do that,
People know how to get hold of me.
They know how to get hold of you. Yeah, I mean, we will be putting out some social media posts fairly soon where people can get involved. We do have a Alliance LinkedIn page. There's not a lot on it yet because, again, we're starting off. And in fact, the Alliance board members are part of the content board for the Superyacht Forum here at Metz. Okay. And the strategy behind this is that we are putting some content in to the forum. It's the breakout session. So Metz obviously have running this. They are the event experts.
Yeah, they've done a great job.
And they've done an amazing job. Absolutely fantastic. Really good. But from the content point of view at the forum itself, the breakout and the brainstorming sessions, much of what we've learnt and done this year is very much attached to the think tanks that we're taking forward. So we're taking a lot of the output from the concept of what we've done here and the sessions we've run from the voices of the industry. Yep. When we had 100 crew, Metz gave us 100 tickets for crew to come. We had 50 captains, 50 HODs, which was fabulous to have a crew voices. And this was a really big thing for us. We're making, hopefully we'll improve that next. It's something if you think we had 900 people attend and 100 were crew, that's a good percentage of industry representation from the crew side. for the overall objective of
and
the
getting crew here is probably not
Superyacht
easy.
Forum.
You got to get them off the boat. They got to get here.
They got to
get
here.
Stay here.
Yeah,
They got to eat here.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of layers to that to bring crew here.
Yeah.
And so it's great the ones that came were genuinely interested and want to participate.
Yeah, and it was super exciting to have them. So we were really grateful that we got the 100. In fact, it was actually 110, I think, in the end, but there we go. So we're doing that again next year. Hopefully we'll have a bigger thing. It's called the Crew Voices Project. It's something that the Alliance is very passionate about. We've put on some events on the Superyacht stage here as well, which have been sort of CPD sessions. Again, we did one with Laura yesterday on the welfare and where crew can reach out, and we did one this morning about onboarding with the HR side of things. So we hope to expand a little bit more next year on this for the crew voices. I think we're always going to be limited on numbers because obviously the capacity of what the forum can take in numbers is already there, and I think having a tenth of the volume versus in so many other sectors in the industry that are obviously wanting to attend. But this year they did expand our space. So traditionally we were in a different hall, and now we're in a place with huge. The auditorium is massive.
I love it. It's massive.
And they've done that because we wanted to expand it to include more of the crew and other people to come. So
and when you look
really
at the participation of the forum this year too, it was incredible.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So I think to answer your question about how to get involved, we really want people to get involved with the sign up for the think tanks, because for us that's where the work comes. We are going to be doing something in January with all the think tank chairs, because the other two think tanks I hadn't mentioned yet was the workforce culture, workplace culture. So that is dealing with bullying, harassment, and how we do the reporting on that, how we safeguard and make sure that crew are feeling that they're able to report in a more autonomous way.
Yep.
So that's another group that we're working on, again, with management companies, DPAs. How can we make this more easier for crew to be able to feel safe in that environment without compromising their jobs, positions or reputations? And the other think tank we're looking at is very much around the crew management side. And we've got pretty much most of the crew management companies now sitting in a room together looking at how they can standardise the way that they operate and some guidelines around that. And this is huge.
That's huge.
This is huge.
That's huge, because the disparity between, Yeah,
so this is a really big thing for us. So within all these think tanks, there's all these hundreds of work groups that are working on focus projects. And when we've eventually worked out the spaghetti of this, we will be putting out on LinkedIn, and I'm going to make sure you guys get this first.
Yeah, thank you.
You're on my list. You get the links to all of this, and then people can start looking to sign up to various groups that they want to be part of, because we need the industry to be part of this. Right. This is totally inclusive. The Alliance is so important. It's important to the Alliance that the industry, everybody gets a chance to be part of paving the way forward.
Couldn't agree more. And I stood up earlier this week and said it in forum, and I'll say it here in this conversation, that Yachting International Radio and Yachting USA are 100% behind this, and we will use our voice any way we can to magnify and amplify your voice to make sure that we are able to highlight and put a spotlight on these initiatives. Where you need additional help, we can help ask for that help. Where you want to put out information, we can help disseminate that information, but we want to be an active participant in what the Superyacht Alliance is doing, because we think it's that important.
Well, I think it's important that you're advertising or speaking about this with us as well, Rick, because the industry needs to hear it. And there's no other perfect voice, really, is there, to get this out there. So I'm really pleased that you're taking that viewpoint, and we'll be very happy to share whatever it is that's going on. There's going to be a lot of activities, a lot of different things, and I'm really keen to communicate and make sure that the word gets out.
Well, thank you, Joey. That was very kind of you to say that. And if you can't tell, I truly do enjoy what I'm doing right now. I take it serious, but at the same time, this is a passion project, and I'm thrilled to be sitting here in Amsterdam this week with family and friends and associates and these conversations that are so important. Yeah. And I'm thrilled that I was able to basically save the best for last and have this conversation with you.
Number
Number 100. And I can't wait to hear more from you in the future as this evolves and things happen and our goals are achieved, and we, as a community and an industry, receive and get to where we want to be.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. And I think one last thing I'd like to say is a huge thank you to the industry. I have been inundated at this particular event with so much support, so much. This has just been, for me, the good news event. People who really want to get involved, people who are coming from all different areas of the sector, who are listening to what we're trying to achieve here and are so enthusiastic and so on side. I think this is bringing out the best in people, and if it's not, it's certainly bringing out the best people. So I'm just really happy.
Well, I've observed you all week with a smile on your face, moving quickly from point A to point B. So it's obvious that you've been busy and successful. Yeah. Joey, thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you for having me.
This is so important and essential, and I just feel privileged to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
We'll do this again.
I hope so.
Continue this conversation.
I hope so. Don't leave me to number 200.
No, we would never do that. Absolutely. That would be way too long. All right. This is great.
Rick.
And
thank you,
until
everybody.
next time, I'm out of here.
If your brand belongs in the heart of the yachting world, this is where it happens. Yachting International Radio reaches over 1 million yachting professionals and enthusiasts every month, with 77 million impressions, 220,000 social followers, and 74,000 podcast subscribers. Our hosts are insiders, crew, captains, CEOs, trusted voices shaping the industry. This is targeted, high-impact advertising in a luxury niche. Visit yachtinginternationalradio.com/advertise. Your audience is already listening.